as I've done it some other times, we're handling the rounds in sort of half pieces. Well, who went first? The Turks went early. Yeah, so we've got pretty much all the anti-Polish coalition here. We've got the Turks and then the main alliance against each other. The Turks pretty much slid some forces forward here. And then the Crimea laid, whatever, Donetsk under siege, I think. You know, just sort of taking advantage of their situation. But then going on to the Polish-French alliance. The English made an advance here against the French army. They got pushed back. Over here, the English sailed their fleet out. That's in preparation to starting to land some forces in Ireland so that they can deal with the French there. The French fleet was unable to intercept them. But the French fleet did intercept the English Smyrna fleet, which sailed out. But this was kind of a mistake. I should have put the Venetians out first. Then the Venetians chased them away, and now they've got them blockaded, which is kind of an advantage. The French should have fought them as well. But that's going to give Anson a chance to get away, probably. Habsburg sliding some forces over to face Vendôme over here. And they're also sieging Posen. We got the Saxons beginning to push through Habsburg territory. Let's see if we can find them. They're up here. Trying to push through Habsburg territory to get into Poland. We got the Russians sieging Orel up here. I know it's impossible to see that in this light. I just can't fix that right now. They didn't get intercepted. They're continuing their siege of Astrakhan. If they can finish Astrakhan off, they're in good shape. But you know what? There's a Poniatowski can't go into Astrakhan. He's not at war with them. Yeah, he's not at war and he's not allied. There would have been the ultimate answer would be to break that siege, take all that away. You know, that's a whole turn's effort already. A long set of rounds. Anyway, we got the Palatinate in Baden over here, moving against Alsace. And we just got so many problems facing everyone, really. The Allies don't have a lot of money, so they're kind of hoping for a short turn, but not too short. And the French on their side have so much to deal with. They've got attacks coming from here. They've got the Polish. They've got North America. They've got a front over here. They've just got so many different things to deal with. Even Poland has so many things to deal with attacks coming from 3 different directions, basically. That this is going to be a complex and painful turn. And add to that the fact that we're going to have the French privateers all over the place and all the navies moving and everything. This is really going to be an ugly war, I think. Well, onward. So now we push into the second round, and what's happened here? Well, very briefly, the Spanish, they went last, but they pulled their forces back into Spain, and also actually managed to quell 1 level of unrest here. Now, there's still 3 levels here. It still requires at least a 9 for them to get rid of it with the army they have in place, but they're actually doing something about it now, and if they can get Cuba back, then they can start working on some of the others. It's going to be a hard job. Those others require a siege as well as just keep clearing things up, and they have no leaders to do it. Although actually, they do have a leader, and I forgot to do what they wanted to. They want to first do a quick exploration there, which is successful, and I'll mark that down. Now they can add the Potosi silver mine to their colonization efforts. But they probably want to shift this leader to start helping these these rebellions. I forgot I had him present, and he can be used for that. Okay, but the bigger and more important thing is the French. What happened here? Well, the French Navy tried to pull out and handle the Venetians. They lost 1 ship, and both sides kind of bounced back. That means the French are going to get an option to try to take Anson on next turn. But they may have to deal with Riva first. French cleared up the unrest here. They assembled an army here under Vendôme. That's they had 50 infantry they had to add to their army. Basically, because they were in Italy, they had to wait. That means they didn't go forward into Innsbruck. They would have had a possibility of being intercepted, so it was a dangerous operation anyway. But next turn, the Austrians are either going to march down and face them, or just kind of park there and cause a problem. We see them beginning their siege in Monmouth. Villars' army is available to go face the minor Germans, including Lorraine. Over here in Poland, we're seeing some serious issues, though, where the Russians were driven out of Orel, which in a way is good because they're going to have to abandon that siege anyway because the Poles have set up a siege of Kazan, and that interferes with Russia's ability to get supplies. If they were allied with Turkey, this wouldn't be a problem because they could draw supplies off the Turks, but they're not, so they have to clear Kazan or else these guys are going to have to withdraw during their turn. Kind of a problem situation. Remember, I was saying, it would be great if the Poles could just clear that out by attacking it. Well, they can't quite do that, but they can cut its supply and threaten it. Now, if the Russians manage to lose the battle for Kazan, actually lose the battle, they can get a bounce and still keep Astrakhan supplied, then there's a problem. But it does force them to use their army there, and their army got hit hard. They actually did fairly well against Poniatowski in terms of damage that they did to his army, but the Russian army took huge attrition losses. They took 50% attrition losses, so they're badly hurt there, and now they're going to have to face a Polish cav out in open territory, which is going to be kind of painful. Me, I'm going to eat, and I'm feeling a little better. For those who might care. All right, halfway point again for the second round. For the Turks, they've expanded what they're sieging. They were in here, but now they've moved into Bessarabia. They've also shipped up here to help blockade Bessarabia. They've pushed some of their privateers against the French as an initial place. Problem is, well, during the Allied turn, the Venetian Navy lost its great admiral. I don't remember what his name is. It starts with an R. He's been around for a while, and he lasts until turn 47. Long-lasting admiral. Which means the French are probably feeling a lot safer. Now, it's possible the English, for example, could loan an admiral. But it's a little late at this point. But the English did manage to slip through with their money and get it into place, which will help a good deal there. English also managed to grab Kinsdale, and the French fleet was unable to move forward because they lost their admiral last time. They've got this guy kicking around that they could have maybe pushed into place. It's hard to tell where maybe this guy has to be there. Anyway, the French have to win a naval battle here to maintain these troops. Otherwise, they're out of supply, and they're going to disintegrate completely. They have nowhere to withdraw to, which is a big French army, two army counters, I think, both full. That's something they can't really afford to lose because that clears Ireland for the English completely. The English got very lucky with a quick landing and a capture of the fort there. And it also makes the English able to kind of play in the same area where, for example, Alsace is under siege and kind of progressing nicely. The Habsburgs came down into Milan, and they were beaten back. Definitely did not do well there. This opens up the problem of a southern advance against the Habsburgs here, or the Austrians, if you'd rather. Over in Poland, well, the Polish have abandoned the Western focus entirely to pay attention to the Russians, and that's allowed the Austrians and the Saxons, and, well, here we have Turks down here, our Turkish allies, to kind of be grabbing what they can of Poland. This is kind of dangerous because if Austria can get the peace with Poland, that ends this war, even if France stays in it. Austria is the main power in the war, and they're the one who has to, get the peace from either France or from Poland. However, Austria suffers all the modifiers that come from anywhere else. And those modifiers aren't going terribly well, although the victory up here bodes fairly well, actually. Oh, by the way, down in the colonies, the English attacked again. We're getting kind of a bouncing here. It looks like there's not going to be an army of any value that's able to siege things. We've got these Quebec troops here. But they can't really take anything. The only way they can win is by defeating the colonial militia without taking any losses, then they have enough strength points to besiege something. That seems so unlikely, I haven't tried it yet. Over on the Russian front, though, this is where things get interesting. Poniatowski is still placed here, but the French general, who I'm going to assume is the heir to the throne or whatever, maybe, was over here in Kazan, besieging it. And the Russians managed to break that siege and really demolish his army between attrition, but mainly just in battle itself. That's leaving Astrakhan open for siege. The Poles don't really have much of a chance of breaking that siege. They'd like to do it as a payback for Russia getting involved in this war. But that doesn't look very possible, and it doesn't look like the Poles are really winning the fights. Remember, they're lower on the technological scale. They're down here on the Orthodox track. Everyone else is way up here, and well, it tells. It definitely tells. You know, the morales are the same, but they're fighting over on the D chart on the fire level. They could get lucky on the shock with the C chart and actually break an enemy more easily than they can be broken, though. And there's really weird factors in that combat chart. Anyway, we'll finish the other half of this round. Now, as we finish up the second round, very briefly, the Spaniards have put their conquistador into play there. It didn't help. They didn't get the success this time. But now over here, what happens? The French annihilated the English Navy. It's gone again. And that gives the French the ability to roam the seas. There's one little couple of ships down here which can maybe do some anti-privateering duty. But for the most part, the French have the right to rule the seas. And they've got a bigger army over here in Ireland. The chance to cut it off and destroy it is gone. They actually did an assault on Cork just to strengthen their position. They can now sail away. They've got a supply source. Of course, facing another army, that could be a problem because that army can do as the Poles were playing with over in Kazan. Villars came in here, destroyed the Palatinate army. Now he's free to go take Lorraine and deal with that. Over here, we've still got kind of a face-off. Nothing's moving there. But the Poles, oh, the poor Poles. You know, it's just so kind of sad to see this happen, but the Polish army is losing its ability to really react. Now, it's also destroying the Russian army. You can see we're down to just a couple strength points here, but the Poles are down to one little army, full strength still, but they've just wasted away everything, destroying that one Russian army that was there. And if Astrakhan falls, there's something bigger facing them. And they've got to worry about the Austrians more than they have to worry about the Russians in the long term. Because if the Austrians get enough of an advantage on the Poles, by capturing territories, whatever, they can force a separate peace at less than a surrender of level 3 to Poland, and that ends the French hopes. The French want to make sure that they can get a good victory here, and they've got to make sure that the Poles aren't losing much, if at all, in order to make that happen. Now, ideally, Austria, Turkey, all these countries would like to really take away some Polish territories, but it's far more important, from everybody's view, not to allow France to maintain control of Poland. And that's kind of where the problem is. Of course, this war remains, even if you drive Poland out. France stays at war with Austria, Russia, for whatever it's worth. I'm sure they can come to a peace. And England. And this was a war none of those countries, except maybe France, was really ready for. France got a bucket load of money out of the Austrians, and their army wasn't that hosed. So they were able to build it back, and they've got a pretty good force. The fact they were able to save things here in Ireland means even England's in trouble against them. And as we push forward into the fourth round, what's going on? Things have sped up a lot, because mainly the Alliance doesn't have much it can do. The English don't feel this force is strong enough to face the French-Irish army. What they want to do, they should probably shift that in. What they want to do is reserve it to break sieges. French have used, and I haven't fought it out either, wow, I'm really behind here, their action to move in with Villars into Lorraine. Down here we still have kind of a stalemate. The French will push through there, but they feel like they have more important goals in mind initially. The Poles are positioning themselves, and meanwhile most of these sieges are remaining. The big thing that happened is Astrakhan fell, and that's now completely surrendered. It's part of Russia. It's been absorbed. And So now the Russians can actually act against the Poles. The Poles are shifting against Austria because they don't feel like Russia is their real enemy here. Defeating Russia is less important, both for victory points but also for this event. It's Austria that has to be hit. Of course, by beating Russia, they also affect Austria because Austria is the leader of the alliance. So it's kind of a tough call there. They're hoping that they have more cav, though, than the Austrians do. Can maybe break these two armies and then maybe turn back and face the Russians, but break up these sieges that are going on. All right, I'll handle Villars. He's pretty much a shoo-in, but it's possible he could be defeated. All right, well, the round's continuing. Get a French admiral, which will be useful. We get a British admiral, which is not. I'll figure out where the French is going to go. Probably down here. Well, he actually outranks everyone, so he's going to start here. Okay. So, mostly not much happened. The Polish managed to waste sort of the last of their strength, it feels like. They're down to no infantry left. They've got cav and a couple artillery and driving the Austrians out of Posen. Meanwhile, we see the Russians seizing in, the Turks actually taking some territory along with the Crimeans. The Crimeans can't go far, I don't think. They're an expeditionary corps, so they can go quite far, actually. They just don't get any reinforcement units. Where else do we end up here? Not a lot else changed hands. The French made an attack into the Tyrol. They got repulsed, and those armies are pretty much wiped down. The one thing I did want to sort of, while I was on the pot, I started thinking about this guy, our Spanish conquistador. He wanders up, discovers the Potosi mines. Presumably now he's very wealthy, even though those mines aren't producing yet, because he's found this. He buys himself the title of, Governor General of the Caribbean, where he's going to be able to try to wipe out these slave revolts now. And then you start constructing this in your head. This is the kind of thing that I enjoy with these games, is, not necessarily just seeing the history unfold, but seeing things that just didn't happen or whatever, making up my own storylines, seeing my own movies in them. And it's the time away from the game that quite often is when I'm enjoying it the most, actually. Anyway, I just thought I'd share that as one of those little snippets. On to the next round, I guess. This turn is probably not going to last much longer, so the Spanish have to consider whether they want to get themselves in trouble in one of these other islands, or just sit tight and try to do one per turn. Because if it goes a long time, they're going to regret it, but chances are it won't. The beginning of the 6th round, well, our good Governor General's gone back to oversee his investments in Potosi. $10 for the bonuses that he gets off the die roll seem well worth it. If the decision is not to continue advancing against the islands this turn. Elsewhere, France defeated the English army, killed the leader, lots of Mondo bonuses on the peace table, and started a siege in Kinsdale, chasing down the privateers. Lorraine's still under siege. The Poles actually drove the Saxons back. That's going to help them. Right now, Poland's not doing badly. It looks like they're invaded all over, but they've got like a 3-point mod in the peace table towards anyone else. So it's going to be tough to drive them out of the war, even with a payoff, which I don't think Russia's really happy with the idea of. Not a lot else anywhere else, really. So onward. And the turn just keeps rolling along, with the Turks pushing up into Sueria. Now this is kind of cutting the Russians off by doing this. It's an annoyance, actually, to them. But the Turks want to gain valuable territory and keep it out of the Russians' hands. Sueria is not really that valuable, but it's easy to siege. Now what they're looking at is if they can get a peace, they want to take Ukraine, something to get them there, maybe Bessarabia, and perhaps Donetsk. If they can get Kharkov, though, they can kind of cut off and make this little Polish enclave here, which is kind of cool because the Poles can't defend that and it can't be taken from them easily. And that might be more attractive to them certainly in terms of the productive value. They want to make sure they have connected territories, though. The Poles again smacked the Saxons and drove them back. We got the French having succeeded in Lorraine. Now, they do not want a peace with Lorraine. They don't have to enforce it because if they get the proper peace with Poland, they can force Lorraine to to become a part of France, which is what they really want. Well, proper peace in the polar situation. Anyway, that's the end of the round, and this is just continuing into being another long turn. We'll see. A couple more rounds go by with essentially nothing happening. Turks have taken Sueria, and the Crimeans have taken Kharkov. The Austrians have failed here. French repositioned some of their forces, but pretty much when Kildare fell, they didn't want to open up a new siege. And that's one of the common, themes to the game is, hey, that round track doesn't look like, I'm liable to gain anything. And I don't want to take the attrition roll. I don't want to do this, that, and the other if I'm not going to get anywhere on it. It's just not worth the chance. So we'll be moving into the administrative, see what happens here, see if anybody can force. Now, the Poles are not doing that badly. They've got a +2. I don't know what kind of penalty they have at this date. You can look that up. I'll be back with that. I don't know what their penalty is for a separate peace. It used to be pretty hefty. It used to be a -3 or -4, which, and then add to that the -2 for separate peace. They were tough to get anything from. I think that degenerates, though, and I think they're more willing to give away land at this point. Any other possibilities? Not really. The Turks might be able to get something from Poland. They've got big bonuses right now. They're at like a +10, so they'll they have a +12, excuse me. They have a desire to gain more. It's not going to go up much from there. It goes down to +4. There's not a lot of territory they can gain. And it really does look appealing to take this Bessarabia, Ukraine, Kharkov, leave them with Donetsk. Hey, so what? And kind of screw the Russians over with that movement. They can always take Donetsk later. Anyway, that's where we're sitting right now. We'll see if they can get their peace. If they can, maybe the Turks will be able to move against Venice, which throws Austria into a world of questions. Meanwhile, none of the big powers are ready to go under yet. These stabilities are pretty high. The only question, Russia. If Russia can get out of this with what they gained, Worones, hey, maybe they'd take it. So maybe they'll get a lucky roll. That, of course, leaves Poland able to face just one side if both Turkey and Russia get out of this war. One side for whether or not France is going to be in this war. We'll see. Well, that -3 was indeed there, but didn't end up stopping Russia. They ended up with a separate peace, getting Worones. They're out of the war. They got a white peace with the French. Neither side saw any reason to continue it. A little bit of goodwill from the Russians probably won't hurt France. Of course, if Russia can restore its stability and if France is still in the lead, it might. It might mean Russia can enter a war sooner. But the way the world's set up right now, it doesn't look like France and Russia are going to have a lot of opposition to one another. It doesn't really hurt to throw them away like this. Now, this broke the alliance that the Russians have with both England and Austria, which kind of gives them a little bit of an additional edge. The Turks, however, were unable to get their peace, which looked like a gimme. Not a separate peace, so there's 2 that they didn't have to pay. They basically needed a 4 or higher, and the Russians, I think, needed a 9 to get their 1 province. And their 4 or higher would have given them 3 provinces like they wanted. But they didn't get the good roll, or a decent roll, or anything. And they're stuck in this war. They thought, hey, we won. Now they have to kind of do it all over again. If they want to get 3 provinces, they have to get as much as they got last turn. Pretty much. That's going to be painful. Russia's probably not going to go slamming into the Crimea this turn, but if they can't get their peace anytime soon, it gets harder and harder to turn the Poles, to pull the Poles to a peace, because they've got this penalty against you that applies any turn. It doesn't carry over, but it applies every turn, and it's just a painful thing. Otherwise, they would have wiped it out with all the successes they have. The other countries really don't want peace. France would love it, right? But only the peace of level 3, which I think they would have gotten. got to modify things, but Austria's got a -4 right now. And the modifiers of the Allies aren't terribly good. So, chances are France would have gotten a sufficient peace to keep Poland. Well, the Allies certainly don't want that. And this could be a very long war to try to push that down if they can't get Poland out of the war early. Right now, they certainly can't. Poland's doing well enough. And some people do want some territorial demands on Poland. All right, well, we're moving into, it looks like, the 1720 turn. Leaders are already out. Some old ones have been removed. I don't know, there was some I had somebody on for too long, but no big deal there. Anyway, I guess we move on.